Hello everybody, welcome back to the James Lawrence Allcott channel. It's time to look at every single Premier League club once again, and this time we're going to be looking at the top performers. Now when I say top performers, I don't just mean the best player. We're going to have a look at some of the stats, and actually really this is about surprise performers. Yes, we'll give a bit of the eye test in there as well, and it will inform that. But really, a lot of these names on this list, you probably won't expect. They might be those underrated players that you're not thinking about. So this is surprise performers in this video. If you do enjoy the content at the moment, then please do me a favour. Hit that subscribe button, hit the like button as well, hit the notification bell as well. Nearly 50% of you still ain't bloody subscribed. Come on. In the words of Cheeky Joel, come on. Let's get into the video. Starting with Arsenal, actually. Top performer for Arsenal. You won't expect this, but that's what this video is about. You're going to get some insight, okay? Alexander Lacazette, that's right. His all-round game has gone up a notch, and both sides of the ball, he's been doing very, very well for them. Have a look at this. When it comes to shots on target, 69% of his shots on target just highlights, you know, the quality that he's got as a striker when he does get the opportunities. He's getting his shots on target. His non-penalty XG as well is in the green as well, so he's taking a lot of the chances that he gets. Next up is Nketiah at 57%. I think that highlights just how much better he is in terms of being that clinical striker at this moment in time when he gets the opportunities. The problem has been, of course, those opportunities. The other one is without the ball. I did a video recently, we were talking about his work rate in the Manchester United game, and that is highlighted by the successful pressures that he puts in. The pressures overall, it's not actually as high per 90 as other players in the team. It's still pretty good, but it's the success rate of those pressures that is really impressive for Alexander Lacazette. So it's not just with the ball, it's without the ball as well. He's been brilliant. On to Aston Villa, and I think pretty much in all of the Aston Villa videos I've done, I generally just go, Jack Grealish, he's well good. But actually, we're going to talk about someone else. Douglas Louise is a spectacular dictator of play for Aston Villa this season. His pass completion has been brilliant, but it's the array of passes that he puts forward that's really, really fascinating for him this year. Man City are going to be sniffing around like nobody's business. They're going to be sniffing around like Joachim Low at a World Cup, okay? Because his pass completion is just brilliant. You know, in terms of completed passes, 689. Only Jack Grealish and Matt Targett have played more passes. His pass completion, 85%, which is really, really strong. Really, really strong. And only bettered by a centre-back and a left-back. Nakamba generally doesn't have the minutes, really, to compete with him. He's obviously the understudy to Douglas Louise. I mean, if you can even say that. But what I really, really love about it is the pass completion in every single area. Short passes, 90%, really, really strong. Medium passes, 90%, really, really strong. And long passes as well, right up there. No one better than him when it comes to long passes. He is just a cracking footballer. The long pass completion in particular, 77% for the amount of games that he's playing. It's really highlighting that he is just a cracking footballer. Villa have done so well to get him. Really smart recruitment before everyone really truly knew about him. And he is destined for the very top. Maybe with Aston Villa, if they can keep hold of him. More likely, I can see him going back to Man City because he's that good. Sticking with another midfielder, and one that completely enables the centre-backs. It is Bissouma at Brighton. Yves Bissouma. He has been fantastic. One of the stories of the season, I think, in terms of players kind of not really being on a lot of people's radars, but now being on people's radars. And the big thing, like I say, in terms of enabling these centre-backs, you get a lot of plaudits for their abilities to kind of look out and try and play as much as possible. But from a defensive side, Bissouma just really, really mops up so much, but it's also very, very good on the ball as well. If you look at the tackles won this season, this is per 90. Welcome to per 90 land when it comes to defensive actions. Tackles won per 90, right up there for that. I mean, he's number one really. Bernardo's only played 2 90s this season. Tackles won, stays up there. In the defensive third, it calms down a little bit as he gets to the attacking third because he really is that protection for Brighton this season, and he's been fantastic for them. I can only imagine with the attacking style that they would have wanted to have played, what would have happened if Bissouma hadn't constantly been in the team. And a lot of talk comes about the XG of Brighton, and a lot of that comes from the fact that they keep the ball and they play attacking football. And I think that's highlighted by the lack of clearances from Bissouma every 90, only 1.65. For a person who's making that many tackles, what happens is when he wins the ball, he's keeping the ball, which I just think highlights the fact that him, and actually I think this is going to be almost a bit of a playground for the big spending teams, that Brighton are building players and creating players and finding players that are just very, very good on the ball as well as doing the dirty work, and Basuma has been the best for Brighton. On to Burnley, and praise be to the Pope, Nick Pope. What a goalkeeper he has been for Burnley. Perfectly suited for them, and as time progresses, I've always been one that I want Pickford. No, I like Pickford, give him a chance. Nick Pope's better. He's a better goalkeeper. Yes, maybe Pickford's better with his feet, but I think the safety that Nick Pope brings you in terms of stopping goals, which is obviously the main thing of any goalkeeper, has to be rewarded because he's so consistent for them. And he plays for a team that actually puts him as a goalkeeper under pressure. First of all, the XG of Burnley this season when Nick Pope's in goal is 23.9 goals. That's how many goals they should have conceded. However, they've only conceded 19. So if you think of XG and outscoring it like with Lacazette in terms of scoring more than the chances that he's getting, Nick Pope shouldn't be conceded 19. He should be conceding 23.9 goals per game. So that highlights how good he is. But also the second one, which I think is very, very important, it shows he's such a top performer for Burnley, is that they defend very narrow, Burnley. And so they allow a lot of crosses to come into the box. And that's down to Nick Pope being able to deal with them. If you didn't have him in there dealing with them, and the percentage of crosses into the box that he successfully stops is 13.3%. To put that into perspective, Pickford, 8.2%. Claiming crosses is a bit of an underrated skill, I believe, especially for an England team that will dominate a lot of games, but often it's going to be set pieces where they might get undone. So having someone like Nick Pope to come out and claim it, there's nothing sweeter, is there? He is a cracking goalkeeper, and I'm starting to think he needs to be England's number one. Now, this one is going to surprise you. Surprise performer. Backed up with the stats. It's Timo. That's a joke. It is a joke. Of course it's not Timo Werner. He's been rubbish. Terrible. But I'm sure Tuchel will get a tune out of him pretty soon. Maybe. If you asked me this a couple of weeks ago, I would have said Mason Mount. Absolutely Mason Mount. But there's got to be a special mention for Callum Hudson-Odoi. Shot creating actions. Now, yes, Timo Werner has struggled. Yes, some of these strikers have struggled. But I think you've got to highlight Mason Mount in the season that he's having so far. In terms of shot creating actions, of course, some of these will be dead balls as well as live passes. He's still top of the tree when it comes to live passes. 82. The next best is Timo Werner with 46 shot creating actions. 30 of those obviously coming from dead balls. But he's still top of the tree when it comes to live passes as well. But Callum Hudson-Odoi, if we go per 90, he's not had many 90s, but his live passing is just off the scale at the moment. 5 shot creating actions from live positions. Yeah. Callum Hudson-Odoi coming in on the inside. He could be the sort of surprise performer between now and the end of the season. Tuchel seems to be starting to invest a bit of time in him. Mason Mount, maybe he might be a bit of a scapegoat, but both have had fantastic seasons and both are creating a hell of a lot. And so both should be rewarded with a mention in this video. Congratulations, guys. Any chance to crowbar him into any video, and it will be done. Abire Eze is in here as a top performer. And look, I think I can justify it because I think, look, over the last few weeks, you've really started to see him totally be confident in this league. I think there was like a couple of games early on where he was himself, but he wasn't himself. He wasn't totally at home in the Premier League, but he's really taken it up a notch. As we know, young, first year in the Premier League, and it's taken it like a duck to water, like a really elegant, gorgeous duck to water. And it's the shot creating actions once again that we look at. Look, 43. Wilfrid Zaha has gone up to a next level as well. I think that's got to be said. He's on 54, but you've got to remember that he has got 287 more minutes than Abire Eze so far this season. In terms of shot creating actions, he's just above him as well. But if you think of how reliant Crystal Palace have been on Wilfrid Zaha over the last few years, in terms of expanding their football, lightening the load, Abire Eze has come in, and when you've seen the likes of a Max Meyer come in and just be terrible, recently left by mutual consent, Eze's come in, has been given an opportunity by Hudson, and he's taken it with both hands, creating, just constantly creating. That's what he's all about. He's fantastic. He's brilliant. He's only going to get better. Sky's the limit. I think he's got a higher ceiling than Zaha for me, because as a number 10, he can totally dictate a game, and you're starting to see that as Palace are starting to get him on the ball more and more and more. Probably the most annoying player to play against, and I mean that with the greatest respect because it's meant as a compliment. Alan. So annoying to play against. He's really come in and brought in just a lovely steal to Everton. Like I said, pretty annoying to play against. I think he's a standard bearer as well. You see him barking out orders all the time. So for Everton, I think you've got a leader there on the pitch who's alongside the likes of Seamus Coleman, who I think has always been doing that kind of on his own. He's also not the biggest of talkers on the pitch, on that right-hand side, maybe not being able to influence it as much. But Alan is there, standing tall, despite being kind of small. He leads the Everton squad in the following: tackles per 90. 3.6 per game. Tackles in the midfield third per 90, 1.5. Pressures per 90, 27. 27. Successful pressures per 90, 7.8. Fouls committed. Like I said, he's a little bit annoying, but that's what you need. The likes of a Fernandinho, who's one of the greatest foulers in the modern game. Alan is the same kind of guy. And there's nothing wrong with having that in your team. You'd rather have it in your team than be playing against it. But also, his dribble success is 77.3%. So for a defensive midfielder who generally just kind of sits there, he's kind of a little bit more pressure-proof than some of these DMs that we've probably seen in the past. Cracking player for Everton, one of their big performers, and they've massively missed him when he's not been available. Andre, Frank, Zambo, Anguissa. He's been class. He's been really, really good. Do you know what I love about him? I love that he can pass, but he can dribble as well. In terms of progressive carries this season, long way ahead of anyone. No midfielders in sight of him at all. But Anthony Robertson, obviously a left back. Lookman, he's a winger who does progress the ball a lot, and he's above both of them this season. Very, very consistent for him this season as well. The exact same can be said for his progression in terms of passing the ball as well. Top of the tree, apart from Areola, who's obviously a goalkeeper as well, and then passes into the final third as well. Now, I know Fulham are struggling to score goals, but he's the main man when it comes to that. Or second in this Fulham squad, 5.4. passes into the final third per 90 as well. Just a good dribbler, a good box-to-box midfielder, gets on the ball, and I think that's a big way that Fulham have been able to move forward with the help of him, Lookman, Loftus-Cheek. Great players, great technical players who are comfortable on the ball, who can beat a man in a tight area as well. But I think for me, every time I watch a Fulham game, Anguissa is the one that stands out for me. Pulling the strings from right back, Luke Ayling. So integral. He's had to play all over the pitch, and I think that's been to the detriment of Leeds. But regardless of where he's playing, he always puts in a brilliant stint for Leeds United. And the stats back it up. They really do. He ranks third in passes per 90, full stop, for Leeds, 75.7. He's the highest ranking outfielder for progressive distance per 90 as well. He's in the top 3 players in the squad for passes into the final third as well. So he's part of the attacking side of it. I mean, it is full throttle with Leeds, and I think Luke Ayling is just almost like the poster boy for all of it, because the energy that he needs to play on that right hand side is just unbelievable. And he's second in the entire squad for progressive passes per 90 as well, 6.7 per 90 for that. So I really love Luke Ayling and the story of Luke Ayling. Another great example, and we're seeing it again and again, and it's becoming old hat now. Players that have to kind of maybe drop down into the Football League and then make their way back up. Going down is not the end of the world, and Luke Ayling, he's just been absolutely brilliant for Leeds, and he fits this system brilliantly, but that's down to his own application as much as anything else. On to Leicester City, and this is the easiest one, and it's just one simple stat. And the man is James Justin. I mean, first of all, superb for me in my Football Manager save in 2020. Of course, I'm still on Twitch, guys. Link is in the description if you want to follow me and just hang out with me playing Football Manager with the mighty Queen's Park Rangers. Of course, you subscribers to my Twitch can get involved and be players in the game. I mean, many of you are watching this video right now. So if you do want to be a part of them and not miss out on all the fun, please do get involved on Twitch. And James Justin was a key last year. But let's think about this year and the one stat that is just glorious when it comes to James Justin. He's been an absolute breath of fresh air. Plays on the right, plays on the left. Here's the big one though. Key passes. If you think Leicester City, and I've given it away now. If you think key passes, who's going to be ahead of James Justin? Do you think he's quite good? Yeah, no, he's had a really good season, but Harvey Barnes will be above him. Perez will be above him. Vardy will probably be above him. Albrighton will be above him. Tillemans will be above him. Dennis Pratt might be above him. Castagna, he's got more experience. He'll be above him. No! 18 key passes. James Madison, obviously, look, he's the fulcrum of the side, so has a hell of a lot more. But to be above Harvey Barnes, who to many has been the player of the season for Leicester City this season, just highlights how fantastic James Justin has done this season. And maybe he's a shout for the England squad with his ability to play on both sides. The only thing that's getting in his way, I mean, is loads of really good left backs and right backs that England have got. But he's having a great season. For Liverpool, it's been an overall frustrating season, but I think Andrew Robertson has been the most consistent performer. When we're looking at the stats here, there's not a crazy amount to look at, to be honest. A lot of the same stuff in terms of the way that Liverpool play, but I think in terms of those two fullbacks who are just so integral to how Liverpool create goals, you know, Trent has had those wobbles along the way a little bit, and let's forget about Trent. Let's focus on Robertson. He's come out of his shadow a little bit. You know, there's so much talk about Trent and so many assists last season. Andrew Robertson, top of the chart when it comes to assists, in terms of expected assists as well. Top of the chart once again there as well. Key passes, he's in the top 4 for the squad as well. He's been brilliant, hasn't he, this season? And he's had to be. And you wonder, out of those two fullbacks now, which one is actually deep down more integral to the future of Liverpool? Is it Andrew Robertson or is it Trent Alexander-Arnold? It's a bit of a toss of a coin, but I think deep down, actually, Robertson has had to pick up the slack from the inability for the structure of Liverpool to allow Trent to get the assists that he wants from it. So the pressure's been on Robertson, and he has responded as well. On to Manchester City, and it has to be John Stones, doesn't it? But not just because of the overall performances of the team and him then coming into the team there, but here's one for you. 100% dribble success rate so far. 100% success percentage, 4 dribbles, 4 successful dribbles. He is yet to be dispossessed this season. He's only made 4 tackles this season, and that partnership with Diaz, in terms of blocking shots per 90, 0.55. Diaz is there alongside him as well. He's really taken it up a notch, and I think that's it. It's the lack of mistakes. I think that's always been a big thing for John Stones, and there aren't as many. Maybe it's down to the fact that Man City have been that little bit more conservative themselves, and he's got that little bit more protection, but I think you've got to give credit where it's due. He has been one of Man City's top performers this season. Not much of a surprise performer, but just an interesting stat that I wanted to dive into. It's just Edison Cavani, and the fact that he does, for a lot of people that kind of look at these videos and go, all right, there's too many stats here. The eye test can lead towards the stats, if you know what I mean. And that's what I like about the content that we're making on the channel at the moment, is that mix of the two. Because sometimes when you see something, it can be backed up, sometimes it can't, sometimes it's somewhere in between. And that's what fascinates me. But with Edison Cavani, I think what's said so much about him is that he's a proper forward, isn't he? His movement's great. What I kind of like, I like players that run away from the ball, that stay away from the ball, because they've got a better understanding of movement, the pattern of play, the pictures of play, and the way that it's going to kind of evolve as the ball goes up the pitch. And I think that's highlighted in the stats when you look at Edison Cavani, about how he kind of works the target, when he gets his shots on target, and the fact that per 90, goals per shot on target are 0.5. Which means that every other shot that he has on target is going in. You've got 0.5 here. Okay, yeah, there's a few above him. It's McTominay, it's Van der Beek, it's Lindelof. It's people that don't have too many shots. But I think what's interesting and maybe a little bit glaring is Anthony Martial down here at 0.13. I think it just highlights that the areas that he gets in, the fact that he's just such a poacher, he's so clinical, it's his movement that I love, and I think this highlights it. Pretty obvious one for Newcastle, and we're sticking with strikers here. Someone who's just completely carried Newcastle on their back. Calum Wilson, the stats and the scraps that he's had to deal with and just sort of feed off. It's fascinating. He's obviously, he's the main man for this team. He's crucial to them. But that's a lot of pressure for him to deal with. And he's actually dealt with it very handsomely. Goal contributions so far this season, 14. That's 10 goals and 4 assists. 4 goals from the spot. So, look, that's a 100% record on penalties. But he won 2 of those penalties himself. 6 goals from 11 shots on target, excluding penalties. 6 goals from 11 shots on target, excluding penalties. So that means we're talking about Edison Cavani and his terms of goals per shots on target per 90. Remember, his was 50. Callum Wilson is 0.59. Yeah. That is a top 6 striker number. That's what Callum Wilson's been doing this season. And who knows where Newcastle would have been without him. Because when you're scoring 14 goals out of the 21 that the whole team has scored, that's 66%. I mean, that's great, but that's a lot of pressure, and he's going to have to keep that up to keep Newcastle up. I'm not going to lie, when it comes to Sheffield United, it's not been easy to find something, an olive branch. But fortunately, thanks to the James and Flav for Now podcast, we've got some Chef Glue United. They're going to be flying up the table very, very soon. But having a look at the stats, I think the only man you can really talk about is David Mcgoldrick. Had an absolute stinker of a season last season, despite Sheffield United doing as well as they have done. And I think you've got to remember that overall, this is probably still a championship squad. They just massively overachieved last season. That said, in terms of expected goals this season, he's on 3. He's actually scored 5 goals so far this season, got himself an assist as well. So if we're looking at scraps, you know, this is a player that does have a little bit of creativity about him, does have that little spark about him. And so if he can continue to do that, and if some of the players around him can score some goals and give him some chances, he's outworking his XG. Come on, Sheffield United, now's the time. Let's lift it, let's go. Come on, Mcgoldrick. Come on. James Ward-Prowse is coming up very big this season. I think his stats are the most fascinating out of anyone, because Southampton are quite fascinating themselves in terms of their XG isn't always that high, and so they need the team to kind of be clinical. They need to have high quality players, which they do have, to take the chances when they get them. And the captain, James Ward-Prowse, has really come up a level in the last year or so under Hudson, and it's highlighted that kind of that idea of taking your chances in the stats that he possesses. He's contributing a lot more goals this season. 4 in terms of overall goal contributions, he's got 9 in 20 matches, which I think it's just fantastic, isn't it, as well? And if you think of that non-penalty XG, he's above everyone in terms of the goal scoring that he would get from it, in terms of outscoring, you know, your XG. And I think what I really like is the fact that his shots on target percentage is 47%, which is strong, I think is very, very strong, right? We've spoken about that with a few players now, you know, he's up there. But the thing with him is it's the distance. Of course, a lot of these are going to be from set pieces, but for him hitting the target as much as he is from so far out, just is such a weapon for Southampton this season. Also, 1.55 tackles per game, which I think is an upgrade on what he's been doing before. He's never going to be the best defender for the team, but he'll do the work. I think he's bulked out a little bit as well, which has been good for the team. He's really become a bit of a leader for this team, and he can play in a variety of positions, which again is so useful for this team. But he's been brilliant. A real surprise package, because I think people have felt that he was maybe levelling out a little bit as a player, but he's figured out where he is. He's got a manager that loves him, and you know, he's outperforming. Moving on seamlessly from a Southampton midfielder, we're going to talk about an ex-Southampton midfielder. Spurs pinched, the perennial pinchers of Southampton stole Pierre Højbjerg into their team this year, and he's been dominating midfields ever since. He's been very, very good for them. One of the players of the season, and certainly a top performer when you have a look at the stats, because he touches the ball more than any other player per 90, 78.9, and I think it's the upgrade on Harry Winks that's been really impressive for me. People wanting him to be the main man, Harry Winks, to kind of get on the ball and dominate it. And I think what's been great about Højbjerg is, yes, he has dominated the ball. You can see it here, 53 touches per 90 in the middle third. Harry Winks, when he does play, 49.5, and then a massive drop off to Tanguy and Ndombele. He does really goes, you guys go concentrate on being further up the pitch, let me get on the ball. He's comfortable on the ball, which is not always the case with defensive midfielders who are so imperious as a defender. But then when you do look at his defensive stats as well, tackles 1 per 90, 2.5 for Højbjerg, then Aurier 2.25, then a big drop off to Ndombele and Sissoko. Again, just highlighting his dominance. And going back to that pass completion, 88.1% pass completion this season, I think just really it highlights that he has literally put his stamp on that midfield. It's mine. Give me the ball. I'll give it to the people that I want to give it to, and if you've got it, I'm coming for it. On to West Brom, Matheus Pereira, the chief creator for Big Sam. He's going to have a massive part to play between now and the end of the season if he wants to keep them up. 22.3 touches per 90 in the final third. He's averaging in the key passes 1.97 per game, which is quite a long way better than the next challenger, which is Matt Phillips at 1.58. Same goes for passes in the penalty area per 90. He's got 1.62. And at 3.32 shot creating actions per 90, he is the only West Brom player who's played a decent amount of minutes to be averaging more than 3 shot creating actions per 90 minutes. So if they're going to score enough goals to stay in the league, of course, they need to stop this leaky defence. But they're going to have to score some goals as well. And he will be the chief creator in any of that. Time for another Allcott favourite. It's Michail Antonio for West Ham. Just utilising such a unique skill set That again, I think when it comes to the eye test, people think, is he as graceful? Is that like, do you want that guy who's going to walk around with, long sleeves and gloves and just be a bit moany? No, that's not what Michelantoni's going to do. He's going to show off his thighs and he's going to have some great celebrations as well. The first thing I love about Michelantonio, and the stats back it up this season, is that he just offers something that no other striker, I don't think, could do for West Ham United in particular. And it's almost kind of occupy two centre-backs, but also allow the team to get up. Of course, he's played on the wing for a lot of his career, and now he's playing as a central striker. And normally when you're doing that, your successful dribbles are going to be kind of hindered by that, because you're going to have people around you, you're going to be struggling to keep hold of the ball, you're going to be under pressure from both sides, be it the centre-backs, the full-backs, the centre midfielders that are trying to kind of stop you from running. But for his successes per 90, 2.48, that's one thing. So for him to be third, that's great. But look at the players around him. These are players who generally play out in those wider areas where you've got one-on-one moments that allows you to have those successful dribbles more readily. Yarmolenko, Masuako, Benrahma, Lanzini, Bowen, all those players are going to be knocking about in those other areas. But Michelantonio is right up there for that one. The other one that I love about him as well, in terms of shot creating actions, again, right up there, creating chances for the team. He's not just a workhorse. He's scored goals for the team, of course, as well, which has been integral to them. He's just been absolutely brilliant in every facet of the game, and that's got to be remembered for someone like Michelantonio. And I stand by what I said at the start of the season. I would love to see him get some international recognition, because if he can stay fit, he is such a menace to any team that I feel like he deserves a chance. He's not going to be a starter for England, but he could be one hell of a sub. And finally, Wolverhampton Wanderers, and I'm going to go for Pedro Neto. Now, I speak about Pedro Neto in my Wonder Kids video, one Wonder Kid from every single Premier League team. So go and check out that video if you want to find out who the other players were. A bit of a spoiler there with Pedro Neto. But the sky's the limit for this guy. And in a team that's really struggling at the moment, he is one of the few bright sparks at the moment. In terms of shot creating actions per 90, 3.94, which is exceptional really for a team that's struggling. Puts him in the same kind of bracket as James Rodriguez, as Sadio Mane so far this season, Harry Kane as well this season, highlighting how important he is to the team. And I think the other one that really does stick out for me in terms of the stats is the final third of the pitch carries. 3.37 entries per 90, 2 shots per match as well. And finally, 4 goals so far this season from an XG of 2.7. Pedro Neto is just a cracking player for Wolves. They need to hang on to him and need to give him some bodies around him to help him put those numbers into more goals and more assists. So there you have it, guys. I hope you enjoyed that video. Lots of stats there, and quite a few surprise performers there for you as well. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have enjoyed it, please do consider first liking the video, but more importantly, subscribing to the channel and hitting the notification bell. We're going to be doing more of these kind of videos. So let me know a couple of things. First of all, which players did I miss when it comes to the top performers? Let's concentrate on the eye test now when we go into the comments below. And then secondly, what kind of video would you love for me to do next? Let me know in those comments below. As I said, hit the like button, subscribe to the James Lawrence Allcott channel, and I'll see you next time.